Hey everyone, welcome to the first session, which is a panel on Borderless Finance, DeFi for the rest of the world. To host this panel, I have my very dear friend Raghav, who is alum of CMU and a great developer and a great crypto guy. Whenever I meet and talk to him, he has something, he's working on something amazing and developing something really fun. He is here to, ask these amazing panelists some questions and see how we are looking at this how DeFi's future is going to look like. Over to you, Raghav.
Thanks for the kind words, Manav. Good evening, guys. The topic for today's panel is Borderless Finance, DeFi for the rest of the world. We're going to try to do justice to this topic and provide you with as much information as possible. I want to introduce the panelists today. We have Tejas Chitnis, co-founder and CEO of Cryption Network. Sameep Singhania, co-founder of QuickSwap. Siddharth Patel, co-founder and COO of Comdex, and Shulin Chen, co-founder and CEO of Rockex. So I wanted to start with the panelists describing their own products, introducing them to everyone here, and probably also introducing how the products help to bring people onto DeFi and make it better for everyone else. We can start with Sameep.
Hey Raghav, can you speak that once again? Somehow my system wasn't working, so I wasn't able to hear you.
No worries. I just wanted you to introduce your product to everyone here and just provide a couple of pointers of how it helps people onboard people to DeFi.
So first of all, thank you, Raghav. Thanks, Manav. Thanks, Initialize Metaverse team for having me here today. It's a privilege to be here. And sorry guys, my camera is not working fine, so sorry for that. But anyways, to start with, I am from QuickSwap team, right? I'm one of the initial members who started QuickSwap. So QuickSwap is basically a DEX on a decentralized exchange on the Polygon network, right? So I think all of you know what decentralized exchanges are all about, DeFi is all about, right? So in some simpler terms, we are a decentralized exchange on the Polygon network, and one of the first exchanges, I would say, not the first one, one of the first ones, right? And one of the first successful applications on Polygon. So when we started on Polygon, there were very few, I think not more than 10 or 15 applications were there, right? And QuickSwap was one of the first to get so much hype and everything around the Polygon network, right? So I think exchanges play a major role in the DeFi ecosystem because in my opinion, there are only very few things which so far has been able to prove themselves some kind of viability in a blockchain ecosystem, and one of that domain is basically decentralized finance right now, right? So decentralized finance is something which has already proved that blockchain is there to stay, and finance can be done apart from what traditional financiers do, right? So yeah, so that's what I basically do, and my team does all around.
Thanks for the introduction, Sameep. I've personally used QuickSwap. Thanks for the product itself. Next, we move on to Shuling. Would love for you to introduce what you're working on and how it helps everyone here.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. Hi, everyone. This is Julie. Greetings from Singapore. It's great to be, to be able to speak here and share our views about, how we see blockchains and also borderless DeFi. I think, India particularly is a huge market that's going to open up a lot of possibilities for DeFi. Quick introduction of Rockex. So Rockex is a technology company in the blockchain space that we want everyone to have access to blockchain data, blockchain yield products, and also blockchain security solutions. Very briefly, basically, we safeguard and we operate all the blockchains as one of the validators, so that it becomes a censorship resistant. And on the other hand, with our staking service, anyone with POS tokens can start to generate yield that we think is a very interesting and long-lasting DeFi yield. that will become a composable Lego, into the DeFi industry. And also our data service.
So sorry, Sameep, I think we can hear echo on your side. Can you mute yourself, please? Sameep?
I'm on mute right now.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
All right.
Sorry, Shulin.
Okay, cool. Yeah. No worries. Then, through our data services, any developers or analysts could understand what's going on each blockchain, and also they can interact with the blockchain without setting up their own infrastructure. So these are kind of the things that we're trying to make things very easy for people to innovate in the blockchain and also DeFi space. This is also the things that some of the large asset management firms and custodian banks are using us for. Happy to talk a bit more about how staking works with DeFi, and how these things can generate like additional innovative ideas in the future. Thank you.
Thanks, Shuling. You're helping us secure our base layer. Moving on to Siddharth Patel. Please, can you introduce Comdex and how it helps everyone here?
Yes, hi. Thanks, Raghav, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining and having me here. I'm super excited to be part of this event, to discuss what DeFi really is and where it's headed and what it holds for all of us. Excited to be in this space. Just to quickly talk about what we're doing at Comdex, I'm a co-founder at Comdex. In Comdex, we're building essentially a suite of solutions that aim to act as a DeFi infrastructure layer for the Cosmos ecosystem. So essentially, what we're trying to build is solutions that help deployment of DeFi applications be much faster when it comes to building in the Cosmos ecosystem. We already have a few solutions that we're operating in the B2B as well as sort of like a fully Web3 DeFi space as well. Would be happy to get into the details of all the products we're building as we go along in this discussion today. But happy to be here.
Thanks for that introduction. Finally, Tejas, can you please introduce Cryption?
Yeah, sure. First of all, thanks for having me. Glad to be here. Cryption Network, we have kind of one main goal, but we do have four products on our roadmap. So our main goal is to kind of bring DeFi and crypto to the masses. And there's a few issues in that, and that's basically what we're trying to solve. As for the products that we actually have, we have a product called Polydex, which is a DEX aggregator on Polygon at the moment, but we're going to be going to Harmony. So it aggregates the best price that you can get off of multiple DEXs, including QuickSwap and Sushi and Define and all the rest. So whatever coin you want, and if you're looking for the best price, you'll search all these DEXs and kind of give that to you. And like I said, we're launching the same on Harmony. So that's number one. That one is also gasless, so you don't have to kind of pay any gas to use it. The second product that we have is called Dap Factory that will launch. So it's not live at the moment, but what it basically is you can create your own farm, staking, liquidity locker, vesting for tokens like team tokens and investor tokens. You can launch your own IDO with your own whitelist, with your own vesting schedule, however you want. And just through the UI. So you just have to click on the text box, write all the details, and then just click on submit, and it will deploy that contract for you. And we also have an SDK for that. So anyone who wants to kind of build off that and wants to deploy farms somehow can do that. So you can create your own launchpad. You can have a build your own farm system in your own website. So that's kind of number two, which hopefully will also get crypto more out there. Number three is a Cryption NFT that we're working on, which is basically going to give you special features, governance, and all of extra yield and that kind of stuff, as well as try to build our community and kind of make it more closely knit and stronger. So that's the third one. And the last one is a prediction market. So the prediction market is basically you can ask a question and about anything and try to get the answer. So you can ask a question about politics, gaming, esports, You can use it for insurance. You can use it for just any question which has an answer. You can kind of ask that question, and if you're right, you can earn money, or you can use it to kind of just gain data and see what the world thinks about the probability of an event. But yeah, that's about it.
Thanks, Tejas. Looking forward to gasless trades, to be honest. Thank you for the introduction, guys. That was brilliant. So I wanted to begin the conversation by trying to understand how you guys have seen DeFi progression over the last 2 years, the real boom in all parts of DeFi as well. Not like we talk about DeFi, but we really mean finance, NFTs, the gamification, GameFi, Metaverse. What are your thoughts about the innovations in in these spaces over the last 2 years, and what was expected? What did you guys think and predict? Okay, this is going to happen, and what was unexpected, just completely out of left field? Never did it occur to you guys that something this would progress more or this wouldn't progress more. So just wanted to understand that. I guess we can start with Sameep in the same order, or if someone wants to begin the conversation, happy to let them as well.
Cool. So I'll start, I guess. Right. So like we have seen a lot of progression happening in DeFi space particularly, right? So let's talk about DeFi first, and then we'll get into NFTs, metaverse, and like other stuff's happening around, right? So I personally feel like DeFi has grown a lot in 2021, in 2020, starting 2020, and until now, the DeFi is growing at an exponential rate, right? So if you'll ask me, just before COVID in 2020, the total value logged in DeFi was in maybe single digit $1 billion, right? That's a total TVL out there, and now it's somewhere around like 200 or 250 billion dollars right now. If I'm not wrong, I'm not sure about that, but somewhere around 250 to 300 billion dollars right now. So that's how much we have progressed in last 2 years, I would say. Not 2 years, 1.5 years, I would say, right? So DeFi is growing a lot. We have seen a lot of projects coming along, a lot of innovative stuff happening around. We have seen Uniswap, converging from V1 to V2 and now to V3 as well, right? We have also seen DEXs, which works on top of other concentrated liquidity mechanisms and like TWAPs, TWAMs, right? So like DeFi is progressing a lot. Like recently I have seen this new field coming up, like which is a derivatives trading. And like it's also getting a strong hold in DeFi industry right now. There's a protocol called Open, then there is a Ribbon Finance, and there is Theta Knots, right? Then there is a Diva protocol, right? So next level of stuff or products are being built in DeFi right now, right? Not just DEXs, not just trading protocols, not just aggregators, right? There are liquid staking protocols coming in DeFi, right? Like Lido Finance, Tether Labs, and stuff, right? And then there are liquidity aggregators coming up. So initially we have seen like swap aggregators or trade aggregators, and now we are seeing liquidity aggregators, right? Protocols like router protocol, they are working to have some kind of cross-chain aggregation protocol, like cross-chain liquidity aggregation protocol, like which is amazing, right? So DeFi has progressed a lot, right? And with every passing day, like as I can see, new products are being built, innovations are being done, scalability issues are being fixed, right? UI problems are being solved, user experience is being solved right now, because there was a problem in DeFi. Like I still feel there's a problem in DeFi where user experience is not that great, right? So if you want some traditional user or a non-crypto user to come to a DEX, to come to a, let's say, a lending protocol, and if they want to do some trade or provide some assets on a lending protocol, it's hard for them because there's a knowledge curve associated with it, a learning curve associated with it. So if you want to use these products, you need to have some knowledge base behind you, right? You need to understand how crypto works, how DEXs works, how lending protocol works, or how DeFi works in general, and then only you can make a profitable trade or a profitable venture in this industry. And that problem is being solved now. So the new user experiences that are coming up, it basically encourages everyone, even the very layman, to come to DeFi with I wouldn't say with no knowledge, but with a very basic knowledge, and then he can start using these products, right? Effectively, profitably, right? So all these changes are happening right now. Even at QuickSwap, like we are designing new UI, new interfaces, keeping that in mind that it should be easier for someone to simply come and use these products. Like I should not worry about what is liquidity, what is swap, what is slippage, what is price impact and stuff, right? And how to do stakings and everything. Right now, in almost in all DeFi protocols, if I want to provide a liquidity and then a stake, like it's a multi-step process, and most of the people, they don't know that there's something called staking as well. If I provide liquidity and I have a LP tokens, I can stake those LP tokens to earn more rewards. Like a lot of informed user doesn't know this because it's a multi-step process, right? It's not that seamless as it sounds to us, right? So all these things are already happening, right? I can see that like people are working to fix these problems. Someone is working at the core layer to solve the scalability issues at the core level. Somebody is working at the application layer to solve user experience problems at that particular layer. And both layers are important, like if you'll ask me, right? So that's what's happening in DeFi. And I think in next 6 months to 12 months, we'll see a lot of growth happening in the DeFi industry. A lot of new products will come, a lot of aggregations will happen. Like I am more into aggregation right now because, with the more aggregation you do, the greater impact you make, because now you are not just tapping into one ecosystem or one product. By aggregation, you are tapping into the entire industry, and that is what is needed right now in the DeFi. If DeFi has to succeed, or if DeFi has to somehow gel up with a traditional finance, that's what's missing right now. Like if I want to do a trade of, let's say, $100 million, right now nobody will think about a decentralized exchange to do that trade. They'll either go to a traditional finance like centralized exchanges or to OTC platforms to execute their $100 million order, right? But they will not come to a decentralized exchange or to a DeFi, right? They'll use DeFi for, let's say, a couple of $1 million, $10 million, but not more than that, right? So that problem needs to be solved, and a lot of products are working towards that right now, right? So that's what I think DeFi is progressing towards. Now, if you talk about NFTs and metaverse, so metaverse is something which came as a surprise to me, right? The way it's like everything around metaverse is happening, because for me, metaverse, it's a different technology. It's not a blockchain technology, right? Metaverse is all about, I would say, your virtual experiences, right? How do you think virtually? Like it is more related to AR and VR technologies than to blockchain technology. That's my personal views, right? So the way metaverse is progressing in blockchain, that came as a surprise to me, because I always thought for metaverse to be a successful technology, you first need AR and VR technologies to be more affordable, right? Right now, if I want to have that particular experience, and if I have to buy an Oculus headset, it costs almost $1,000 or $1,500 right now, which is not affordable. I won't call it affordable because only very few people can afford it, right? So that's why I think what's happening in metaverse, it's great, but that was a surprise to me because I never thought something like that would happen in a blockchain industry. But it's good for us because metaverse is something which is giving a lot of eyeballs to blockchain right now. Because of this metaverse and meta thing happening, a lot of new people are looking towards the blockchain technology and entering into this particular space, right? So that was like a surprise to me. And like if you talk about NFTs, like I am like very much into NFTs as well, right? Not those like shit NFTs that's happening around, right? But the true NFT use cases. By true NFT use cases, I mean like NFTs can actually be used in, let's say, supply chain management, right? Because through NFTs you can track products, like you can track the ownership of products, you can track the different conditions of the product, entire life cycle of a product, right? If you talk about real estate, you can have all those stuff on in the form of NFTs. If you talk about art selling, right? If I'm an artist, if I want to sell my art, and if I want to reach a broader audience, right, I can still sell my art without using NFTs. But with using NFTs and digital technologies, my reach increases. Like that's the benefit. My reach increases, my privacy increases, the piracy reduces, right? So someone can basically have a counter argument that I can still sell my art, but you can sell your art only to a very limited audience, and then you have to go to a certain middleware parties who basically hold a lot of equity rights on top of your product, right? Using NFTs, using blockchain technology, you can bypass all that, and you can increase the reach of your audience, which is important. That is something which blockchain or NFTs somehow evolves. So like I think all these three domains, especially DeFi, NFT, like they're going to do great in this in the entire ecosystem. And like what's happening right now, it's good for ecosystem. So we'll see new products coming up, we'll see some products going away. Like that's a part of the life cycle of any technology, right? Some comes up and some goes, but overall the progression is good. Like it's a net positive, it's not a net negative, it's a net positive.
Really interesting. Thanks for the thoughts, Sameep. Very, very honest and candid. Does anyone want to add to that? Or maybe uh, anyone, please go for it.
Sure. I think Sameep, captured very well what the sort of trend has been in terms of how DeFi has grown and what it's brought to everyone who's involved in the space. I think just to add to that, what the way I see it, one of the key things that DeFi has done as a whole is allow greater market participation in the financial markets as a whole. If you see today traditional financial markets, there are derivatives markets, there are options markets, there are market makers out there. But us as retail participants of those markets never really have perception of those functions. We're never able to sort of actively participate in any of those functions. We just sort of get the retail end of the stick where you can just interact with the products that are available to you as a retail investor. The great thing about DeFi is it kind of strips all of that away. As a DeFi investor or as a DeFi user, you could be providing liquidity to an AMM and essentially serve the role of a market maker. You could be, creating derivative assets and taking short positions and short liquidity. You could be, providing liquidity to funds. You could be creating, short option positions and trading strategies. All of these are things that even if you had the knowledge to do in the traditional finance space, there's a lot of barriers to access as it is. A lot of the financial products that we're used to dealing with in the traditional finance space usually require you to be a accredited investor or have deep knowledge in that space or have large capital to access it. And the beauty of DeFi is that it kind of strips all of that away. No matter who you are, as long as you're just a wallet address with a certain amount of tokens and capital in it, you're able to interact with all these DeFi protocols and extract from it the service value that you expect to. And I think at a very fundamental level, that's a key part of what DeFi has done. It's brought market making, money markets, derivatives, options, things like that easily accessible to retail investors and users.
Yeah, just to add on to what the gentleman has explained about DeFi, just a bit of observation of how DeFi has evolved. Back in 2017, when we were reading about white papers about Bancor network, Bancor protocol, or Kyber network or AirSwap, right? So that was already at the very beginning of people trying to find a new way of market making, so automated market making. But it only took off in 2019, when the liquidity farming concept has come in, right? So actually the whole process was like, okay, we have the core ideas, but then we also find a way to incentivize people into this space. This is a very classic internet business, right? This is about network effect, hit a critical point, and things just boom afterwards. So from my perspective, the two core components of DeFi right now are number one, DEX, and number two, lending protocols, right? Because these are the two critical functions. Number one, to find a buyer and a seller and make it happen. And number two, if you have a lender and a borrower, make it happen. Yeah. So all those things are working very seamlessly and also automatically. This is like a innovation because we have never seen an exchange market that can operate 24/7, but DEX are running 24/7, right? So one thing that I see that probably needs to be more improved in the future for these two markets is basically capital efficiency. Because of the way how pricing mechanism is done in the current DEX and lending protocol, a lot of reserves or liquidity are actually sitting there idly doing nothing. So this is something that I think in the future, just like how traditional financial market has evolved, we will see more ways to utilize those idle assets, right? So take example, some protocols start to use staking as a additional yield to them. Superfluid has been doing that on Cosmos ecosystem. So we think this is something very exciting. And the second thing here is that we also think that if you look at right now, okay, what are the type of yield sources in the market? So it's number one, transaction fees, and number two, lending interest. Yeah. However, both are related to business usage. there is no long-term market risk-free yield curve in the market. Yeah. So this is something that ultimately this is like the most basic layer of interest in the market. This is also why we started Rockex in 2019, because we see every blockchain basically as a country, a sovereignty, and the staking is basically the sovereignty bond that comes with the inflation, the natural inflation of each blockchain, plus the transaction fee, which essentially is equivalent to GDP. That's why we are from our side, our perspective, we look at staking as a bond market that adds up to transaction fees and lending interest.
Very interesting. Tejas, would you like to add or just speak about your thoughts on the last 2 years as well?
Yeah, so I would say it's like in the timeline or the story of DeFi, what had happened was, like he said, we had DEXs and lending, and these were like the two main things that you actually needed. Then we had liquidity finance, which liquidity farming, which kind of brought in more liquidity. At this time, let's say we had bad UX, but just because you can overcome that through those gains, those APRs, and all of that. So because of that, we got liquidity. Now we have all of this liquidity, and now you have to build better protocols and just create better and more advanced DeFi systems like options and futures and insurance and all of these. And because you need to, or even aggregators, right? Because you want to give the users better APR and try to get them to stake on your platform. So there's now a proper competition in ideas as well, right? Not just marketing and how you can make the best system. So because of this, been a boom, and DeFi has kind of risen, and now it's a very competitive space. So this will just keep pushing DeFi further and further. And this will just, people will keep adding liquidity to DeFi. And I think we're going to see a snowball effect on DeFi. Very quickly on NFTs, what I didn't see coming was the apes kind of NFTs and all of that. In retrospect, like after Dogecoin, maybe we should have kind of seen it coming, or at least I should have seen it coming. But I didn't really see that kind of part of NFTs coming. What I did kind of see was the metaverse kind of stuff coming in, because I think like that is one of the end goals, like of like even of humans, right? Because that's where we want to kind of go to Ready Player One or the Matrix, where we can try to make utopia in such a way. So it came a bit earlier than we thought. Like we've started working on it earlier than I thought, but I think eventually like this is the main path that we want to go through, right? And try to just get the metaverse perfect, so then we'll have a utopia, or we basically try to make that utopia, right? But yeah, those are my quick thoughts.
Thanks for that. That's really interesting. I think there's a myriad of opinions on what's happened, but the base, as far as I understood it, at least, is that the basic products are already there. The primitives of Texas lending, NFTs were a bit left field, but they're here to stay. We see how they progress, and the metaverse is evolving. It's a different technology, as Samit pointed, but the integration with crypto is really interesting. So just moving on, I wanted to also understand how you guys think we onboard the next billion people onto DeFi. Some of you said that DeFi is meant to empower the retail investor and give them better APRs. So how do we bring everyone? How do we onboard everyone, especially the first billion people? And is DeFi actually meant for the average consumer, or is it just a game of whales where they decide, institutions decide, where the liquidity is, what the APRs are in the future, right? And how does regulation also kind of play its role here? So again, anyone, if they want to get the ball running. Yep. Thanks for that.
Sure. So I think the answer to this, the way I see it, kind of lies in between what Sameep and Juling said earlier on. Picking on Sameep's point, I think UX has to play a big role in getting the next billion users on board in DeFi as well. As it is, the way I see the Web3 market today, it's kind of divided into two segments. There's the people who are aware about crypto and only see crypto as speculative asset. So they kind of buy their first set of coins, but they only store their coins on the centralized exchange that their KYC then use, because they still plan to exit that coin on that same exchange and then get back to their fiat world and move on with their lives. And then there's the second phase of people who, once they get their inroads from a centralized exchange, from their fiat to the crypto, they actually are able to take their crypto off the exchange into a wallet and then start using that token for the utility and the functions it's meant to be used for. So the first stage of it obviously has to be to convert these phase one people into phase two people, where they're able to start recognizing the utility that these tokens have to offer, take them off the exchanges into wallets and start using them. And I think UX has a big part to play there in bringing these people on board. The way UX looked for providing liquidity in AMM, like let's say 8 to 10 months ago versus how it is now, has come a long way. I might have a bias coming from the Cosmos ecosystem, but the Osmosis DEX that I've used in the Cosmos ecosystem is a prime example of a product that keeps innovating and delivering, something new, but with a core focus on what a DEX should really be serving. Once you kind of move on from the UX part of it, to go back to Juling's point, which is again a very valid point, is the matter of capital efficiency. You see today, a lot of collateralized lending that takes place in the DeFi space happens at very heavy over collateralization ratios, which for the retail is still, an unfriendly user experience when you have to basically lock up 200, 250 or 300% of your borrowing size in collateral assets. So these two kind of, I feel like, are the next challenge towards that, DeFi needs to clear to onboard these users. Obviously, when there is any kind of industry that's growing at the rate at which DeFi has grown, and attracting the kind of capital that DeFi is attracting, it's also going to draw attention from regulations and regulatory bodies across the board. To some extent, I kind of see it as a positive if regulations do hit some aspects of DeFi, because it kind of legitimizes and brings more, it just brings legitimacy to DeFi, and actually is the rails on which the next billion users of DeFi could come from. But in terms of answering your questions about core DeFi, is it really a whales game? I think even whether it is or whether it isn't a whales game, the good thing about DeFi is it gives anyone with the knowledge in those fields the right to actually leverage that knowledge and benefit from it. Whereas in traditional finance, you could have that knowledge but not have access to it due to several reasons that traditional markets present. So going forward, I think it's more about liberating these markets so that the next billion users can start accessing them. But at the same time, giving a little more insight and transparency into what's actually going on at the back end, so that regulators are comfortable allowing masses dealing with such products and use cases.
Really interesting. Thanks. Sameep, you want to add to that maybe?
Yeah, definitely. Because I always talk about how to bring million or billion people, and I completely agree with Siddharth's point, right? He's to the point. And to add to what he just said, I think there are few problems or gaps in the industry right now, and one of the major gaps is the knowledge base, right? The way we communicate what DeFi is, what DEX is, what lending market is in a decentralized finance, we explain everything in a very technical fashion, or in a very technical manner, right? If you want to understand what a decentralized exchange is, if you go to a Google, you will find very few definitions or articles out there which explains it in a layman's term, or which explains DeFi in a layman's language, right? And the problem, and why it happens, I think I know the reason, because when this industry started, everything was being developed by the developers, right? This industry was called a developers industry because all the products out there, these products were either started by cryptographers or by the developers, but not by the marketers, not by the salespeople, right? So this industry lacks good, they have some marketers, but it's still, it still requires a lot of good salespeople, a lot of good marketing agencies or marketing people out there, because right now it has a lot of developers. And when developers start explaining what DeFi is all about, what DEX is all about, it's only for developers, trust me, right? Nobody else can understand what DeFi is, what DEX is. And I think that's a major problem right now. All the articles are there, everything, all the explanation, majority of them are written by developers, right? So layman is not able to understand, right? Because if I am writing out something, I'm writing it from my mindset, and I'm a developer, I'm an engineer, right? So that's the biggest problem right now. So people don't understand what DeFi, layman, they don't understand. They have heard about DeFi, but they don't understand what DeFi is, and nobody is telling them what DeFi is, right? So we need to tell them that this is DeFi in a layman's term. I think that's the first problem. We need to fix this. Then only we can think about bringing all those people. Because right now, like as Siddharth said, like as one of my other colleagues said as well, people are worried about a lot of volatility happening in the industry, right? All the volatile assets, right? So as Zuling said, this is the only industry which works 24/7. Exchange like works 24/7. That's good, but that's bad as well, because now it also contributes to the volatility of the market, right? Because it's 24/7 available out there. So a lot of people, like, they are worried about this volatile nature, because they do not completely understand everything. They understand very few parts, right? And that's why, like, they do not want to enter this industry, right? The second thing is, like, I still say that blockchain is its as a from a technology perspective, is it still in its very early stages, right? It's still not that scalable. So if we are talking about a billion users, let's just assume what will happen if a billion users start interacting with a blockchain ecosystem right now, right from this point, right? Let's assume in next 1 hour, a billion or 10 billion people are going to interact with certain DeFi or DEX application. Do you think it's going to, is it able to handle that much load right now, right? So right now, I think technology is not that scalable to handle, let's say, a billion user load or a 10 billion user load. Is there a technology out there which can handle a billion transaction in an hour or a billion transaction in a day? Right now, I don't think so that any technology is out there, right? So technical innovations are happening because this technology is still very new, right? And we are, like, exponentially growing. Like, if you look at the growth of blockchain technology, starting from 2009, when the Bitcoin was launched in January 2009, to until now. And if you talk about programmable blockchain, which started with Ethereum, which was launched in late 2015. So in last 6 to 7 years, we have achieved so much which no other technology has achieved so far, right? No other. So technological innovations or technological scalability is happening, but right now, like at this point, I can't say that it's 100% scalable to handle the load of next 1 billion or 10 billion users right now, right? So I think that's another barrier which we need to solve, and we are already solving, to onboard next a billion users. And then regulations, right? Again, like, regulations are very necessary in this industry, as Siddharth said, even if it creates certain negativity as well, because it's good to have something, it's good to have a starting point at least, because if there are no regulations, you will not find true users or the actual users coming into this space. Like, institutional investors, may it be a very retail users, because everybody is worried about, like, what regulators are going to do. Let's assume if we are sitting in a country, and if users start, let's say, investing into the cryptocurrency, buying cryptocurrencies, playing around different exchanges out there, different applications out there, and suddenly the government or the regulators say, the crypto is banned in your state from, let's say, tomorrow, right? These guys are like, I mean, like, they are gone. I mean, like, their wealth is gone, everything is gone. They can't do anything, right? So regulation makes people worry about what's going to happen in the future. Is my government going to put a blanket ban, or what kind of regulations are going to come up? So that's why it's always better to have a regulation, because that gives some sense of security to you, or some sense of understanding to you, that what's going to happen, right, from a regulation point of view, and which is very important, because we are living in a regularized society, right? So we cannot simply go away with regulations, right? Like, a lot of people talk about having no regulations, but that's not going to work in this society. Having a regulation or not regulation, it's not a problem of blockchain, it's the problem of society. We need to solve that at the societal level, right? So that's another good point, I would say, to have the regulations in this society. And then UX, right? Again, like, UX is like everything I talked about: knowledge base, technical scalability, regulations, all this, like, from my point of view, it comes under user experience, right? User experience is not just about user interfaces, right? It's about the entire experience of a user in this particular industry, and we need to fix that, right? And it has to be fixed in a multiple stages. Like, first we need to fix the knowledge base. If we can do that, we will, like, definitely bring, let's say, a million or 10 million users. Like millions of users are not coming just because of the knowledge gap, right? They don't understand what this industry is all about. If we are able to solve that, we have, like, brought a next million or 10 million users very easily. Then regulations, and then technical innovations, right? So I think that's how we can bring next million, billion, or 10 billion users into this industry.
Thanks, Ameep. That was very insightful. Just
Yeah.
just while Tejas and Shuling, when you speak next, I wanted to everyone's touching on user experience and how the experience is a little bit marred by the problems we face today. So just maybe to add something from the traditional finance world of how mutual funds and stocks and accounts for custody and regulation around it, what that's all that has done for that industry. Maybe is that something which you see viable here in a user experience as well? If you guys can also touch on that, just as a parallel.
Mhm. Yeah. Just to add on to Siddharth and Samip's remarks, okay, I tend to think about blockchain very similar to what the internet was like back in the 80s or 90s. First of all, internet speed is slow, so is the TPS of blockchain. Yeah, and number two, it's built by a group of geeks. That's why UI and UX is not really the top priority. Uh, now it's more about making things work. So I do want to just share one point with the audience here. In case people are thinking about how to bring the next 1 billion users onto blockchain. So the thing here is about the entry point. Yeah. So I'm not going to touch about how to do from an on ramp into crypto as the first step, because that one has a lot of regulatory implications. It's very complex. But let's just focus on the crypto native entry point. So that is how do you interact with all kinds of dApps. Yeah. So that is the wallet. Yeah. So I think there is definitely a need, to number one, make wallet much easier for people to use, and also make wallet having much more features, so that people has exposure into different types of DeFi products. Yeah. So this is something that. Uh, so like back in 20, I think a lot of people heard about DeFi, but a lot of people were also unsure how to access it because they don't know how to use MetaMask. Without knowing how to use that, then there's no way you can interact with the blockchain yourself. You can only tend to centralized exchange. Yeah. And just additional point on the wallet side is that right now the security way, the security method of having your own wallet is to remember your seed phrase, right? So that, I mean, on one hand, it's nice because you pass all the responsibility and rights of your own security to yourself. You are not trusting anyone else. But also, this comes with huge responsibility. What if you lost it, or what if somebody else has seen it? That's why we think that private key storage is a very crucial component. This is probably the biggest barrier for traditional financial guys to get into the space. Yeah, I mean, for us, we're experimenting a lot on multi-party computation to slice one single private key into multiple shards. So at least there's no one can have the full key, and you can have a few trustees, or another way, maybe just a couple of computers, just to have a backup. Yeah, etc. Yeah, so I just want to touch point on this entry point views.
Thank you. Just to clarify for everyone out there, multi-party computation is a new encryption method just to put out parts of keys in various spots, and only when all of them come together, or some parts of them come together, do you form the key back again, so you can access your wallet again. Thank you, Juling. That was interesting. Tejas, do you want to add to that maybe?
Yeah, yeah. As Sameep said, knowledge transfer is kind of the way to bring people onto like the next billion. Um, and before that, I think it's good to kind of just take a pause and, as Sameep said, just realize where we've come up till now in these 6 years. We can always kind of look forward what's going to happen, but we should take a moment and just actually realize where we have arrived. About the knowledge transfer, I think that is one way to kind of do that. That's not the way that I kind of go about it. For the main reason, I don't think I'm powerful enough to kind of affect that kind of change. Educating the public is very difficult, extremely difficult. So that's the reason I don't go that way. So when I think about why DeFi is even here, the main reason, or I think it's succeeding in all of that, is not. I might be wrong here, but is not because of decentralization of the bank. I do think it's because people want to get more money. They want to earn money. They see higher APRs. You can get 10% on the dollar on compound, but you get 1% on bonds in US. This is what why people are here. So you don't need people to care about how things are happening. And one way you can fix that is just having an application which is, let's say, an our aggregator of the yield, and you just put in your money. You don't care what happens. It gives you an APR. The brand will have to establish trust, be insured, and all of that kind of stuff. But I think I'm not really sure if people do care what is actually happening, and they just want to earn money. I might be completely wrong here, but I'm sure that there is a subset of people who do think this way. So I think the way to get the next billion is, I think there's actually one major main way is for actual complete abstraction of the blockchain. And what I mean by that is the user should even know that they're using the blockchain. And there's three ways that I think this can be achieved. Number one is the on-off ramp system that has to be seamless. So you get here again, the regulation and the tax and all of these things are hindrances here. I can talk on that later as well. Number two is gas fees. Why do you need people to have Matic or Ethereum? So you spend money there, and all of that stuff is confusing. It should be abstracted out. So that's the number two thing that should be abstracted out. Number three, the wallet should be on your mobile phone, and you should just be able to use them as a Web2 app. There are companies like Web3 Auth, which kind of use multi-party computation where you can just log in through Google, Facebook, all of that. Your private key is distributed onto various nodes, but as the end user, you're just logging into a Web2 app. So if you don't even know you're using this Web3 kind of app, and it's just like ZeroDAO or Kuvera or any of these apps, I think you can onboard that many people as much as they do have. So I think that is like the way to kind of onboard the next billion. Yeah.
Thanks for your thoughts, Tejas. That's really interesting. Parallels from the traditional finance world, especially something like Zerodha has done their job there as well in the stock market here in India. Thanks, guys. Honestly, that was really insightful, and that was really brilliant. We're gonna now try to take questions from the audience, and we have a couple already. Let's start with the first one, the most upvoted. Devraj Singh asks, we can see that every day a new DeFi platform is popping up, and the liquidity is getting split into smaller pools and shifting to multiple chains. How do we see this as an issue as more and more chains in the future further split this liquidity?
Hello, hi, Devraj. That's basically a very valid problem right now, right? And I think that's what aggregators are trying to solve as well, right? But cross-chain liquidity dispersion is something which nobody is able to solve right now. And I think as more and more chains come up, and liquidity is basically squinted upon all those different chains, it's going to be a problem, right? That's, I think, one of the major problems with DeFi faces right now. So as I said, DeFi is somewhere around 250 to $300 billion, but that's not concentrated somewhere, right? That's basically distributed across different chains: Avalanche, Polygon, Ethereum, Solana, BSC, Phantom, and whatnot, right? So that's the problem. So that's why if you want to do a big trade, you're not able to do that. Even if we have $300 billion in DeFi, we're not able to do a trade for, let's say, $50 million or $100 million, right? And the reason is the liquidity is divided. And I think that's like the next set of products which are already being worked upon, right? Where they aggregate across blockchain liquidity. And I think in that a lot of different protocols are coming up. Okay, Siddharth is from Cosmos, right? He's from Comdex working on Cosmos. And I think the protocols or the infrastructure layer like IBC, inter-blockchain communication, can actually solve this, right? And that's the future of blockchain, where different blockchains can communicate with each other. And when that particular facility is built at the core level, where different blockchain can integrate with each other, or the applications on different blockchain can talk to each other, then this problem is gone, right? then it doesn't matter either you are deployed on Solana or on Ethereum or on Polygon or on BSC, because now these dApps can interact with each other. It's more like Web 2, right? In Web 2, if you understand about Web 2, you have something called APIs, and then you have something called JSON based APIs, right? So using JSON based APIs, different applications can interact with each other. I can interact to Facebook can interact to my Web2 application, I can interact to Twitter, right? So you must have heard all these applications, they expose their APIs, right? That's what I think what IBC is going to be all about, right? Every blockchain platform is going to expose their APIs in the form of IBCs. That's how IBCs will be done, like inter-blockchain communication, right? And work is already being done. Like as I said, Cosmos has done a very successful, thing with that, with IBCs. Like Polygon is doing something very similar with Polygon Edge. Avalanche is doing something very similar with subnets. So these technologies are already being played upon. POCs are being done. Applications are being built on top of that. So I think we are not very far, very far in the future where we can see that the like applications on different blockchains are able to talk. But right now, if you ask me, right now it's a very real problem where liquidity is divided onto different platforms out there, right? But I think this should be solved in maybe in a year or two, like very very soon, because like technology is already there, it's being played upon. We just need to make it more scalable and need to figure out how to make it work in the existing solutions.
Thanks, Samir. Does anyone want to add to that? Or should we move to the next question? There are a lot of them, so I'll just move on. So Lakshay Taneja asks, when will we see applications in DeFi with easy entry for non-crypto users? I'm assuming what that means is non-crypto native as of now.
Yeah, I think I can take at least part of this question. For not when we say like a non-crypto users taking access to DeFi, I think what he's trying to imply is users who are not holding custody of their crypto assets. Let's say, how can they start taking access to DeFi? It's kind of tricky because ultimately these users are not, they're not really there for the decentralization of it. They're coming through an exchange, they've done their KYC and things like that. So in my own experience, there are already products out there, like Celsius, for example, in the US. Although recently they had some issues with regulations, but Celsius until recently was allowing retail users to park their liquidity in DeFi markets. There are also other projects like Pillow, for example, which is allowing people to do the same. There's Flint Money, which is also along the same lines. So I think in terms of when we say easier entry for non-crypto users into DeFi, would have to be through some KYC custodial-based solutions, because I think being fully native DeFi kind of implies also taking custody of your assets. So yeah, that's the way I see it.
Thanks, Siddharth. I think we're just gonna move on or like to final thoughts. Thanks for the questions. Unfortunately, we're running out of time. Thanks to the panelists, because of all of what you said, we have to make questions. So hopefully you guys can answer in the networking session later. This was really insightful, really brilliant. A lot has been spoken about user experience and bringing on more people and accessibility to DeFi around the world. I just wanted to get some final thoughts, if you have, to wrap it up. If anyone wants to just maybe collate every single thing we've spoken today in a couple of sentences, that'll be great.
Oh, maybe okay. I just do a quick one from my side. Again, very grateful to be at this event. I strongly encourage all the audience to start something in the DeFi and blockchain space. India is the land of entrepreneurship and innovation. Yeah, so we could start small, but think about it, this space has nothing. 5 years ago there was nothing. So whatever we build, as well as it could be, it's a legacy and it's something that is going to help the whole industry. And who knows? Small things could, like tiny things, could become like bigger. in the future. So if you guys are looking for any data service, let's say a full node service, or if you are thinking about how to use staking or MPC for applications, do come to us. We're happy to support. We are the infrastructure provider, and we want to see as many applications on top of blockchains as possible. Thank you.
Thanks, Shuling. Your contribution was great, and I agree. Indian people are innovative, and I think we should start small, but everyone should start something. Any other final thoughts?
Thanks, Zuling. Thanks for awesome words about India and Indians. Like that's basically, I completely agree with you. Like it's true. So guys, if you think if you want to do something, like I think blockchain is the right place for you. It's still very early, right? Don't think that if you are entering into the blockchain space, it's already late. No, it's not. It's still very early, right? We are still in the 80s era of internet, right? So you can still enter into it. You can build great products, and I mean, like anything you can think about right now, because there are not many products. Even if you talk about DeFi has not many products. Like 5 years from now, you'll see what what DeFi will be all about. Right now, DeFi is still in its very early stages, very nascent stages. It's a 2-day baby, like if you'll ask me from that timeline, right? So there is still a lot that you can do, right? You can work in derivatives, you can work in exchanges, you can work on exchanges on the capital efficiency side. Capital efficiency not from the point of view of trader, but from the point of view of liquidity providers as well, because that's something which nobody has still thought of, right? So there is a lot of stuff which you can do, and I'm always happy to help. If you guys, like if anyone needs any guidance, any support, anything, like do reach out to me on Twitter or on my Telegram. I would love to help you guys. But yeah, I mean, like it's still early, and get into it, but do your own research, like because this space, like nobody has talked about all the spams and scams that happens in this space, right? So you should definitely do your own research, right? If you want to enter into any project, or if you want to put your money onto any project, don't just put your money by looking at the APYs. Those numbers are fascinating, but you should not simply look at those numbers. You should do your research and figure out who is behind that particular project, and how audited is that project, how used is that product, right? So that you do not get into some kind of scam or hacks, because that happens a lot in the DeFi industry and at a very large scale, right? So do your own research whenever you want to put your money somewhere, and if you want to build something, and if you need any guidance, do reach out to me. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I'll go quickly as well. I know we're running short on time, so I'll make it quick. Thank you so much, everyone, for having me here. Very much resonating with what Zhuling and Sameep said. I think it's a great time, a great industry to be in. One of the beauties of this industry is that the whole industry thinks as a positive sum game. Everyone in this industry is always very helpful and supportive, and I want to do the same. So obviously, for anyone who's looking to get involved in the space, you can always reach out to us on DMs on our social media. More specific to DeFi itself, we at Comdex are essentially helping build the infrastructure layer that helps building DeFi easily in the Cosmos ecosystem. For those of you not familiar with Cosmos, you guys should definitely check out this layer one, fast transactions, low gas, all that jazz that you hear. But it's also truly an innovative space built on superior technological layer, and we're helping bring DeFi to this ecosystem. So if you're a builder out there looking to build DeFi, which can be deployed, building DeFi applications which can be deployed quickly, do get in touch. Would love to help you guys out in whatever ways we can at Comdex. Thank you.
Yeah. So just wanted to say one last thing. If you guys are a dev, then you guys can work on blockchain and DeFi and kind of figure out how to push that part forward. If you think you're a good graphic designer, if you're good at marketing, you can get the word out there of the new technologies that are being built. And if you're an investor, you can invest in good projects that you think are pushing the envelope, right? So just all three of us kind of working together can accelerate the process. And finally, I would just like to say thanks for having me on the panel. It's been an honor.
Thanks, guys. You guys have been great. This has been really insightful, really educational. I'm going to hand it to Manav now. and hopefully everyone visiting the panel learned something. Thank you.
Thank you, Raghav. Thank you all panelists for taking out time and sharing your thoughts here. Thank you, audience, for all the lovely questions. Stay tuned. We have a second panel starting after this session.